They happen to be my views, and, well, for the next hour, they're going to be the views of Bob Chapman from the International Forecaster as we look and see what's happening financially throughout the world. But, at the G20 conference they had in Toronto this last weekend, why, of course, the financial leaders from throughout the world, some of them said, look, what we've got to do is get our financial house in order. We've got to stop going ahead and spending more money than we have. And what we've got to do is actually begin cutting spending and certainly get our balance of payments back into line. But the Obama administration doesn't want to do that. They want to spend our way out of the problems we're in. They want to spend ourselves into prosperity, and they want other countries to do the same thing. Because, of course, if we continue spending and these other countries begin contracting their economies, begin, of course, cutting their spending, why certainly their economies will contract, and they're not going to be able to buy our goods on the international markets, and that will impact on the United States. If other countries, of course, do what's responsible and try to maintain the stability of their currencies, why, of course, other countries will not want to buy American bonds because they know that, of course, every time we print another $1 trillion and simply put it out there, we're simply undermining the value of our currency. And one of these days, other countries like China and Japan and Germany are going to say, we're going to quit buying American agency bonds and treasury bonds, because we think that one of these days they're going to have to default. I mean, after all, they're in worse shape financially than Greece ever was. And believe me, we got a lot bigger problems than Greece ever did as well. I mean, we have 75 million baby boomers going to retire here in the next 10, 15 years. Where's the money coming from their Social Security? Where's the money coming from for their Medicare? Where's the money coming from to provide, for all the people that we promised to provide? And we've already spent the money. There's nothing there. Hi, Bob Chapman, how are you doing?
Pretty good, and I know where the money's coming from.
Where is it coming from?
Uncle Stan.
Well, as I'll tell you, it's not coming from Uncle Sam, because Uncle Sam doesn't have any money. It's got well over $13 trillion in debt. It's going to spend, they admit, $1.6 trillion more than it takes in this year. That's not quite half of what we're putting out. I think we're putting out about $3.4 trillion, and we're going to have to borrow $1.6 trillion of that. How long can you continue doing that, Bob?
I would say probably another couple of years. They look like they're going to extend it. They try to whipsaw the members of the G20 in Europe into not putting the screws on their economies austerity-wise the way they want to, and they're gonna take another bite at the apple here. I think Congress can be talked into maybe $300 billion, and the Fed will come up with the rest. They just print paper.
Now, what you're talking about is another stimulus to try to keep our economy going.
Right. And that'll extend it another year and a half, maybe into the next election after this one. And after that, it'll collapse.
But what's going to happen? How are we going to pay for the war with Iran? I mean, obviously, everything is in place for the war with Iran. How are we going to pay for that? Are we just going to print money?
$62 billion a week.
Well, we'll be back here in just a moment with Bob Chapman. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in real trouble. We're morally bankrupt, and we're financially bankrupt, and, well, God does bring judgment upon nations. Our guest, of course, is Bob Chapman. Did you do that television program in Athens by telephone, or did you go to Athens?
Oh, no. That's a long way.
All right, fine. Well, that's what I figured it did. So basically, you had the opportunity to be on it because a lot of people will hear what was said, and certainly you're absolutely right. I mean, certainly the premier of our president of Greece today is part and parcel of this small little group of very powerful people who run the world, and he's betrayed Greece. And now they're talking about selling off a lot of the little islands over there. They got little islands. They belong to the Greek government. They got to sell them to try to make make up for the massive debts that they have that they cannot pay. And, of course, what they want to do is get the money. And who's going to get the money? Well, it's got to go to the banks. In fact, the United States put up $60 billion of the $1 trillion that was put up by the European countries to pay off Greece's debts. Who gets the money? The bankers get the money. That's how this thing works. They get richer, but behind this are powerful occult forces. This is what people have missed all along, is that the occult involvement in the banking industry. But you go right ahead, Bob.
Well, they want to sell them off for 20, 30 cents on the dollar, and there's about 1,000 of them. And I said on the program, don't you under any circumstances allow this PM to sell off all of the assets of the country. For what? To enrich these people who are responsible for the position that you're in today? Absolutely not. Default on your debt. If you want to pay some of the countries back 30 cents on the dollar, that's up to you, but I wouldn't even do that. I mean, they knew what they were doing from the very beginning, and they knew that Greece was not in a solvent state 10 years ago. On top of that, dump the euro, issue a new drachma, lay off 30% of the people who are working for the government, cut your expenses, make sure that these Greeks who are rich, who are hiding their money offshore, pay their taxes, change the laws, and cut all the taxes for the middle class and the lower middle classes so that they'll have some money to spend and you can keep your economy going. And then the question came up, well, what Mr. Pompeo wants to do is have an internal drachma and do external trade in euros. I said, you've got to be kidding me. That's the worst possible thing the country can do, because everything you pay for will be in a hard currency, which means you're going to go deeper into debt. And your big advantage with having a drachma for internal and external trade is that it will drop in value precipitously versus the euro. So all your goods are going to be very cheap. Your imports are going to be expensive. And that's okay. Don't buy them. The Germans don't buy them. The French don't buy them. So why should you buy theirs?
Well, I'm sure that will not be a very, very popular message, but what we need is national sovereignty and domestic currencies. And this is, of course, what the internationalists want to get away from. They want a European currency, they want a North American currency, and then they want to mold us into this one world government with the destruction of sovereignty. This is what it's really all about. This has been going on for 5,000 years, going back to Nimrod, where he wanted to consolidate all the tribes and rule the world, and God intervened. And there's always been this move to create a world government. And then, of course, first of all, you begin to unite the various countries under certainly as far as trade is concerned, a common market, and then you sneak in a common currency, which is what the euro was, and then you begin to move them into a European government where there's no more sovereignty, there's no more freedom. You got a bureaucracy that makes all the decisions, and the people of Europe are furious with this. Most of the people of Europe want to get out. They don't understand this is not democratic. This has been decided by this elite who rule the world, and of course they're using Europe as a trial, but this thing might fall apart. Is there a possibility that the euro will fall apart, that the European community will fall apart? What are your thoughts, Bob?
Well, it's not going to fall apart. You got to look at the other side of the coin. All the nations that are holding Greek bonds, as well as the banks, are going to suffer. We're talking $400 billion overall. I don't know what the percentages are, but it ain't good. To use a colloquialism, and so yes, they're all going to get hurt. But I think for the Germans, particularly, and the Dutch, they have the most solvent economies, and I think they're going to be happy to extricate themselves. I hear talk of a Northern European euro. It's a non-starter. It'll never happen. It'll have to be backed by gold, and it's not going to be backed by gold. I mean, we don't even know whether Germany got their gold back that requested about 9 months to a year ago. And if we haven't heard about it, that means they didn't get it.
I think
and
for our
the
listeners,
U.S. sold their gold off.
basically what happened is that Germany had their gold deposit, I believe, in New York, and they asked for the gold back. It was sitting in the basement of a big bank there, and they wouldn't give it to them, presumably because they didn't have it. In other words, it was Germany's gold, and they'd gone ahead and sold it, and I don't think the Germans were too happy about that, were they?
No, and that's why I don't think there can be, nor will there be, a Northern European euro. And I had talk of Denmark joining. And Denmark has rejected the euro twice. And then on top of that, Denmark is in serious financial trouble. They're not bankrupt or anything, but they got problems. I mean, Poland's got problems. Not the same as Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Romania, and Hungary, but they got problems. I mean, even Sweden's had problems. The Corona fell precipitously over the last couple of years. It's only now starting to recover. And so this big change is coming. Even England, I guess, much to the consternation,